clatter of metal forks on ceramic plates suddenly stopped. The ambient sizzle from the flat-top grill seemed to fade, and the steam rising from the coffee pot I was holding felt like it froze midair. The blood rushed to my ears, drowning out everything except my manager's voice. "Clara, what did I tell you about this?" Marcus' voice boomed across the Beacon diner, a sound so sharp it physically hurt. Every conversation ceased. Construction workers in dusty boots, forks halfway to their mouths, turned to stare. An elderly couple in booth 4, who I just served, froze with their coffee cups raised. Even Zod, the cook, peered through the service window, spatula in hand. "You know he can't pay yet. You serve him anyway." Marcus' finger jabbed toward my chest, then violently toward the small figure hunched in the back booth. "Are you trying to get fired? Is that it?" Time stopped. 30 pairs of eyes swiveled between me, Marcus, and the boy. The boy, Leo. He was 8, maybe 9, and his shoulders curled inward, his small frame swimming in a worn red sweater. His gaze was fixed on the bowl of oatmeal I had just placed in front of him. Still untouched, the shame radiating from him was a tangible thing, a cold wave that hit me and made my own chest ache. In that single horrifying moment, I knew every person in that diner saw me exactly as Marcus wanted them to, a soft-hearted, foolish waitress breaking the rules for a lost cause. What they couldn't see was the small damp handful of coins, quarters, dias, and pennies that Leo carefully counted onto the counter every morning. They couldn't see how his eyes, wide and haunted, darted to the door with every chime of the bell, as if he expected someone to drag him away. "My name is Clara. I'm 23 and I'm a waitress working to pay my way through my sociology degree. This is the story of how one act of kindness, an act that nearly cost me everything, unraveled a secret that changed my life forever." For 2 years, I'd arrived at the Beacon at 5:00 a.m. to prep. The pay barely covered my tiny apartment and my crushing student loans, but the regulars were good people. 2 weeks ago, I'd noticed him, a small boy in a red sweater, slipping in at precisely 6:00 a.m. He'd slide into the farthest booth and just wait, never making eye contact. "Oatmeal, please," he'd whispered the first day, his voice so soft I barely heard it. When it came time to pay, he'd counted out his coins. He was short by almost 3. I'd covered the difference from my tip jar and a glass of orange juice. I'd said with a wink I didn't feel for energy. He never spoke again. He just ate, his eyes never leaving the door. The pattern held for 2 weeks. 600 a.m. red sweater, quiet order, my discreet help. Until today, I had seen Marcus just 5 minutes before his explosion. He wasn't yelling then. He was standing by the register, his back to the diner, staring at a stack of envelopes. They were bright red, final notices. His hand was rubbing his temple so hard I thought he'd leave a bruise. He looked exhausted, defeated, but then his eyes had lifted, scanning the room, and he'd seen me sliding the unpaid bowl of oatmeal toward Leo. His exhaustion had instantly curdled into a white-hot targeted rage. He had chosen his victim. "I asked you a question, Clara," he shouted, snapping me back to the present behind him. Duna, the other waitress, was already pulling out her phone, smirking. "He's just a child." "Marcus," I managed, my voice trembling. "I can't let him go to school hungry." "Not your problem," Marcus snapped loud enough for the entire street to hear. "No more handouts, or it comes from your check." The little boy scrambled from the booth, abandoning his breakfast and his backpack. Before I could move, he was gone, a flash of red disappearing out the door. My office now. The cramped space smelled of stale cigarettes and bleach. A first and only warning notice lay on his desk. "Sign it," he said. "Marcus, please. He's just, I don't care. Parents should feed their own kids. Sign the damn paper." Glad. I took the pen. My hand was shaking, but not from fear. It was from guilt, a sharp, sickening guilt. Not for feeding Leo, but for being caught. This piece of paper jeopardized everything. My student loans were due. My rent was late. I was 2 semesters from my degree, and I needed this job. The thought of failing, of having to drop out because I couldn't afford it made me feel physically ill. I signed my name. Don't make me regret keeping you on, Marcus added as I turned to leave. Plenty of people would kill for your shifts. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay awake in my tiny studio apartment. The signed warning notice, feeling like a physical weight on my nightstand. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Rent was due. My sociology textbooks weren't cheap, and my student loans were a constant suffocating presence. I was so close to finishing my degree, so close to finally starting a career where I could actually help people like Leo. But the thought of 700 meters arriving of that small boy in the red sweater slipping into the booth only for me to tell him no, it made me physically ill. It felt like a betrayal of everything I was studying to be. By dawn, I had a decision. It was risky, but it was the only one I could live with. I would pay for Leo's breakfast myself. I'd take the money from my own wallet, ring it up as a to-go order if I had to, and keep the transaction completely separate from Marcus's books. He couldn't object to me serving a legitimate paying customer. I would just be that customer. I got to the diner, my heart pounding with a mix of defiance and fear. 6:00 a.m. passed, then 6:30. The regulars filed in. I poured coffee, my hands shaking slightly. 700 a.m. came. I found myself checking the door every time the bell chimed. No red sweater. Tarling. My stomach twisted. Had Marcus' public humiliation scared him away for good? Was he hungry right now because of me? Was he sick or worse? The thought of that small silent boy wandering the streets alone made my breath catch. By 7:45, my anxiety was a cold knot in my stomach. I couldn't stand it. Duna, cover my tables for a second, I muttered, ripping off my apron. Where are you going? She asked, annoyed. I think I left my textbook in the car. I burst through the back kitchen door into the alley, my eyes scanning the street. Maybe he was just scared to come inside. Leo, I called out softly, feeling foolish. Nothing. I walked toward the street, my purse swinging wildly as I rounded the corner by the large industrial dumpsters. I stumbled over a loose cobblestone. My purse strap snagged and the bag flew from my shoulder. Damn it, I whispered, dropping to my knees. My keys, my phone, a handful of pens, and my wallet had scattered across the grimy pavement. As I frantically scooped everything up, my fingers brushed against something plastic and sharp, half hidden under the metal leg of the dumpster. It was caked in grime. I picked it up. It was a student ID card from the local elementary school. It was cracked down, the middle, and the photo was faded and scratched, but the face was unmistakable. It was Leo. My heart stopped. I wiped the dirt away with my thumb. The name printed in bold. Official type. Reed Vance. Leo, grade 3. Vance. He had a name. He had a school. Why was his ID card here, discarded like trash? I was still staring at it, my mind racing, when the sound of a heavy, expensive engine pulling up to the front of the diner made me look up. At 8:15, a gleaming black Bentley Sudden, the kind you only see in movies, glided to a stop directly in front of the beacon's entrance, blocking the entire street. The diner went silent. 2 men in immaculate dark suits emerged first. They didn't look like customers. They scanned the area before one moved to open the rear door. An older man stepped out. He was tall, thin, and wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit. His silver hair combed back. He moved with a quiet, effortless authority that made Marcus, who was now scrambling out the front door, look like a child. Good morning, sir. Good morning. Welcome to the Beacon Diner, Marcus gushed frantically, trying to smooth his wrinkled shirt. Table for 1, 4, 3. The older man ignored him completely. His sharp, intelligent eyes swept across the diner, taking in every detail, every customer, before finally landing on me as I stood frozen in the alley doorway. He walked toward the entrance. I am looking for someone, the man stated, his voice deep and cultured, cutting through the silence. A person who works here, someone who has been helping my grandson. My heart hammered against my ribs. Marcus' fawning smile froze. You're your grandson? Yes, the man said, his gaze intense. His name is Leo. I felt the plastic ID card digging into my palm. I took a step forward from the alley, past a stunned Marcus. "Excuse me," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The older man turned his full attention to me. "Your grandson. Is his name Leo Vance?" I held up the cracked and dirty ID card. The silver-haired man's sharp analytical gaze locked onto the cracked ID card in my hand. All the imposing authority seemed to drain from him, replaced by a raw, naked vulnerability. "My God," he breathed, taking the card from my shaking fingers. "Yes, that is my grandson, Leo Vance. Where did you find this?" "By the dumpster in the alley," I whispered, my stomach churning. "He must have dropped it yesterday when he ran." "Ran the man?" Arthur Vance repeated, his eyes darkening. Mr. Vance. Marcus suddenly bustled forward, his voice dripping with false sincerity, plastered with a salesman's smile. "What a relief! We've all been so worried about little Leo. A delightful boy." Arthur Vance held up a hand, silencing Marcus without even looking at him. His gaze remained locked on me. "My grandson hasn't spoken a word, not one into years," he said, his voice thick with an emotion I couldn't place. "Not since his parents. My son and daughter-in-law died in a car accident right in front of him. He was in the back seat." The diner, already silent, became a vacuum. I felt the tears well in my eyes. "Oh my God," I whispered. I didn't know. He was always so quiet." "He has selective mutism," Arthur continued, his composure returning, but his eyes were still fixed on me. "We have the best therapists, the best doctors. Nothing has worked. He's been living in a shell." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Until yesterday afternoon. He was with his tutor, and for the first time he spoke." He handed her a piece of paper. He reached into his tailored suit jacket and produced a crumpled piece of notebook paper. On it, in a child's shaky handwriting, were 3 words. "Safe oatmeal, kind girl." He told his tutor he'd been coming here. Arthur said, his voice cracking. "He said you gave him safe oatmeal and never made him feel bad for his coins. He said you were the kind girl." I couldn't speak. I just nodded, the tears now rolling down my cheeks. "Aha," Marcus boomed, seizing the opportunity. "Yes, exactly. I'm so glad it worked. I told my staff. I said, that young man, Leo, he's special. I personally instructed Clara here." He put a heavy proprietary hand on my shoulder, making my skin crawl. "I said, Glad takes special care of him. Give him whatever he wants. It's on the house, of course. We believe in community here." Mr. Vance, the lie was so bald, so audacious. It left me speechless. The construction workers in booth 2 were glaring at Marcus. The elderly couple was shaking their heads in disgust. But before I could find my voice, the suited man who had been standing silently by Arthur's side stepped forward. He was holding a sleek, thin tablet. "That's fascinating, Mr. Marcus," the assistant said, his voice polite but edged with steel, "because that doesn't align with our records. When Leo didn't return from school yesterday, we began tracing his steps. I personally called this establishment at 4:15 p.m. Marcus' hand twitched on my shoulder. "I asked the manager," the assistant continued, "who I believe was you, if a small silent boy in a red sweater had been seen here, to which you replied, and I have the audio recording time-stamped. We're at Dare, not an orphanage. Don't call here again." Then you hung up. The color drained from Marcus' face. His smile vanished. His hand dropped from my shoulder as if it had been burned. That was a misunderstanding." "I don't believe it was," Arthur Vance said, his voice now like ice. He turned his full attention back to me and the warmth returned to his eyes. "Clara, that's your name." "Yes, sir," I choked out. "You found his ID card, which means you came looking for him even after." He gestured to a visibly sweating Marcus. "You are a remarkable young woman. What are you studying?" "Sociology, sir. Social work." Arthur Vance actually smiled. It transformed his face. "Of course you are. I'm an architect. GL. My firm, Vance Design, is building a new community complex uptown. It's designed to have a heart, a central place for people. I've been struggling to find the right person to design and run the cafe at its center. He handed me a simple, heavy business card. I'm not looking anymore. I don't want to just finance a cafe. I want you to create one as an extension of your social work, a place built on kindness, not profit. My team will handle the build-out. You will handle everything else. You will be the owner. I stared at the card. I don't know what to say. Just then, the diner bell chimed. My head snapped up. Leo. He was standing in the doorway. His tutor, a kind looking older woman. Behind him, he was wearing his red sweater. He looked terrified, his eyes darting from Marcus to Arthur, and finally to me. I dropped to my knees, right there on the greasy diner floor, holding his cracked ID card. Leo, I whispered. He walked slowly, hesitantly toward me. He stopped a few feet away, looking at my tear-streaked face. Then, in a small, clear voice that echoed louder than any shout, he asked, Is there any more safe oatmeal? I let out a sob that was half laugh, half cry. Always low, I said, for you always. 1 month later, the Lighthouse Cafe opened its doors. It was all warm wood, soft lighting, and comfortable chairs. A large chalkboard wall was covered in suspended meals where customers could prepay for a coffee or a meal for someone in need. The Beacon's old regulars, the construction crew, the elderly couple, they were all here now. Martin the cook had quit the Beacon and now ran my kitchen, his hash browns finally getting the appreciation they deserved. Last week I saw Marcus through the window. He was standing across the street staring. The Beacon diner behind him was dark of For Lisa's sign taped to the glass. He turned and walked away. I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet sadness that he had to lose everything to learn a lesson I learned from a child. Leah was here, too. He didn't come every day, but today he was helping me wipe down tables. A small apron tied around his waist. He was talking more now, in short, quiet sentences. A young girl, maybe 12, with worn-out shoes, was sitting alone in the corner, staring at the menu with worried eyes. Leo looked at her, then at me. I nodded. He went to the counter, grabbed a bowl of oatmeal and a glass of juice and quietly brought it to her table. He didn't say anything. He just pushed it gently toward her and gave a small nod before coming back to my side. In that moment, I understood when life threatens to fire you for your compassion when you're shamed for your kindness. You have two choices. You can harden your heart, or you can build a bigger table. Leo taught me to build. It's amazing how the smallest act of kindness can change a life. Sometimes it's the person you're helping, and sometimes, if you're really lucky, it's your own. If you've ever seen an act of kindness change everything, or if you've ever been that person, share your story in the comments. We'd love to read it. And if this story reminded you that compassion is never a mistake, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's justice wrapped in grace. Silent Revenge.